So, relatively recently, a trailer came out for Daydream Barbecue, a game based off of Joel G's animated web series, Ina. It's a strange, surreal show that takes heavy visual inspiration from 90s era internet, 90s era PC operating systems, and 90s era PC gaming. I'm not going to say much about it now, because when Dream Barbecue does come out, I want to make a video on not only it, but the entire series as a whole. The reason I bring the trailer up at all is because while nothing in it in specific reminded me of the game I plan to talk about today, the vibe I got while watching did. Fatum Betula, Fate Birch in English, is a game about a lot of things, and is probably going to be one of the more depthful games I talk about on this channel, at least for now. We'll start with the gameplay since it's fairly simple, and work our way up to the parts of the game that are more interesting, for lack of a better word, later. You start the game off with being given 3 vials, courtesy of this fine gentleman. You are then told that you can fill these vials with various different liquids and pour them into this water that sits right beneath a floating birch tree. What liquid you pour in determines what ending you get, and more importantly, what becomes of the world around you. After you're told all of this, you can leave, and, well, the world is your oyster at that point. You can talk to a cast of colorful characters, solve their problems, or murder them, whatever's your prerogative. You can see places that only belong in dreams, some are in dreams, and, of course, you can decide the fate of this world. Fatum Betula has 9 endings. Some of them are funny, some are very meta, but most of them are existential. Some of the topics covered include the likes of organized religion, death, cults, and immortality. And funny enough, my favorite ending isn't any of those ones, it's the meta ending, and almost entirely because of its context more than the actual ending itself. Which isn't to say that ending isn't also good. The message behind it is simple but poignant. Live your life, live in reality, and don't lose sight of it. As the game puts it, it's not profound, but it's true. Being honest though, the lead up to that ending interests me more than the statement being made in it. There's something about an NPC in a video game knowing they're in a video game that really clicks with me conceptually. And that NPC doesn't know they're in a video game at first, but they have that inching feeling of dread the more they question the world around them. You can tell while reading their logs that they're about to find an earth-shattering discovery about their own life that no one wants to find out. And as the logs go on, the veil gets lifted as they start dreaming of an object that's perfectly smooth, unlike anything else in the game, and then that object appears in reality. Well, their reality. It finally clicks with them that their world is made out of planes, edges, polygons, and scripts. And then the log ends. And you can't talk to the person that wrote the logs, not that they'd probably have much to say aside from talking about tomato soup, because you killed them. It's mentioned earlier in the logs that the NPC caught some sort of virus from one of the warped townspeople, leading to the air outside of their lab becoming deadly. Of course, you wouldn't know this, so seeing them through the glass, you instinctively open the door to talk to them, and they die on the spot. And it's your fault. It's such a specific kind of psychological horror at play here, one that toys with the idea of life being a simulation. It's not a horror that applies to me very much. If the world is a simulation and I'm aware of that fact, it's not like much is going to change in the grand scheme of things. I find it a topic more fascinating to talk about than actually frightening. And the thing is, Fatum Betula isn't a horror game, not per se anyway. Sometimes it's relaxing and calming, other times it's lonely and cold, and sometimes, yeah, it is just straight up unnerving. And don't worry, there are no jump scares in this game or in this video, I wouldn't do that kind of thing. I find jump scares, like laugh tracks and sitcoms, are a cheap tactic to get you to feel a certain way. That's why most of my favorite horror games don't have them, and the ones that do usually have you in some sort of control over when the jump scare actually happens. That's not really relevant to Fatum Betula, I just wanted to say that. Let's talk about the aesthetics of this game for a second. They take pretty clear inspiration from classic PlayStation graphics. Games like the original Silent Hill, Siphon Filter, or maybe even Echo Knight. Also, I want to make it clear that I'm not saying Fatum Betula took cues from those specific games. I don't really know what exact games the creator Bryce Butcher took from when creating this game, but it's clear the visuals are designed to look like they're not only from that era, but also from that console specifically. This was a really cool stylistic choice that I think helps sell the game's more surreal ideas perfectly. The thing that early 3D graphics have, and will forever have, is how they force you to fill in the gaps in your own mind. This aspect of early 3D gaming really helped horror games especially back then, and is something I think older horror titles will always have over modern ones. Your brain will always come up with something scarier if a design is simple and with little detail over something that has so much detail that you can tell exactly what it is you're looking at. Your brain knows what scares you best, after all. And while Fatum Betula isn't going for scares for the most part, that aspect also comes into play with surreal, abstract ideas too. Look at this thing. What is this? What is this? and this. These designs on their own are really good, but are helped by that aforementioned choice of style for the reasons I hopefully explained well. And of course all of this stuff is wrapped up very nicely with a small but notable soundtrack by Simone Peltier. The OST doesn't have many tracks in it, hell most of the game is either silent or uses ambient sounds, but what is there really goes a long way for the game's atmosphere and tone. Some are calming. Some have this strange sense of nostalgia to them, almost akin to the feeling you'd get while listening to some of Akira Yamaoka's work. And some are, well, some are unsettling. Alright, I think it's time we end this one off, everybody. Fatum Betula is a really fascinating little experience, and I mean little. This is the only video on my channel so far where I was able to record footage for it in one sitting. It's that short. That's not a detriment in any way, and while you may not play Fatum Betula for very long, it will probably stick with you and stay in your head much longer. And yeah, there's more I could talk about before wrapping this up too. I could give my 2 cents on more of the endings, I could go more in depth about some of the interactions in the game, but to tell you the truth, I just don't want to. We'd be here all day, and I made this as a sort of reprieve from the Epic Mickey video, which was just exhausting to put together. And I don't need nor want to make another big essay like that for a while. Not to mention, while I have my own takes on a lot of the ideas brought up in the game and don't mind talking about them, I think it'd be more fun and more meaningful for you if you play the game yourself. Come to your own conclusions, figure out the puzzles on your own, see the weird locations and people this game has to offer. And who knows, maybe someday I'll go more in depth in the endings in a stream, or hey, I'm on a podcast now, I might bring it up there, you should check that out. I probably won't, but you know. And with all that said, I'm gonna take my leave now. Oh hey, I forgot to tell people to watch my fucking TAC video.